Okay, this is your second look at the 2D design selected works part. All of this is from the College Board, so these are examples of things that students submitted and the scores they received. So I want you to continue to think about, as we look through these examples, are there materials that are interesting to you that you've never used before? Are there processes that are really intriguing to you that you want to learn more about? Write those down, post them in our Google Classroom so that I can also help guide you in that direction. So let's get started. In work 1, the student's ideas lies hidden in cuteness through game design. A trickster cat who invites a girl to play with him. Materials, digital illustration. Processes, the contrast and value of light and dark colors represent the duality of the lies. So again, with digital illustration, I'm going to be pushing you to get more specific. What program were you using? What tools were you using to create your digital illustration? Number 2, ideas. So ideas are the same. Materials, now we have a digital print media. And so kind of part of what they're saying, we can see this is almost like a product development for a CD. The point of this is this would be printed. Delicate bows, soft pink colors, and playful candy cane and polka dot patterns symbolize cuteness. 3, let's see, we do have a new idea. Lies hidden in cuteness through game design. The girl unknowingly falls into trap, must fight through lies to escape. Materials, digital illustration, process, game design format. Okay, so this one scored a 3. A 3 is okay, but normally I like to try and have you shoot for a 4 or a 5. So here was feedback on their use of the 2D design skills. Remembering 2D design is talking about how did you apply the elements and principles of design to your work. So overall, these works demonstrate moderate skills with a good use of color to create unity and contrast among the images. So unity and contrast are principles of design. The inconsistent use of figure-ground relationship to create balanced compositions and logical illusion of space is not as strong. For example, in work 4, the action is pushed to the foreground and the emphasis is awkwardly placed instead on a large empty rug that is not in perspective correctly relative to the point of view in the rest of the space. The disc and package designs in work 2 are some of the stronger designs in the portfolio due to the repetitive pattern, playful movement of shapes in space, and flowing line use in the font choice. However, more consistent textures, different font choices, and additional repetitive patterns would further push those connections in work 3 and 5. So this is work 4. And this is one of those where they're starting to have some depth. That's what they were talking about here. So the action is pushed to the foreground. So the foreground is whatever is closest to us. That's what is in the front. But the emphasis is a little bit more on the empty rug. So this is where the emphasis is because kind of the view, we almost are up here looking somewhat down. And this is taking up so much space. It's what's grabbing our attention, which is a little bit distracting. So even if these figures were moved up a little bit more, if there were some color added to it a little bit more, that would bring more emphasis and attention to it. The materials are digital illustration, process, game animation, storyboard, disguising evil intentions in cute exteriors. The innocent facade, liars often show. Materials, processes, and ideas. So how are the material and process choice connecting to the idea or the story that is trying to be told? All of the images presented relate to character design and packaging and are logically created through digital processes. However, the use of digital tools is inconsistent and the student's intention appears to not always align with execution. For example, the combination of both flat vector-drawn images and painted dimensional figures in work 3 is ambiguous, and in work 5, the icon-like elements create an overall simplified use of space within a game. The horizontal formats in works 4 and 5 clearly relate to the proportion of a screen and illustrate moments in the game. However, The choice of orientation in works 1 and 3 are inconsistent with either screen or package proportions, and the purpose of the illustrations is also unclear. Overall, the cuteness is visually evident, but the ideas of lying are lost in most of the imagery. So this is work 5 that they're saying this is kind of like not a lot going on here. It's pretty flat. The font is nothing really interesting. So it's a little bit lost. And finally, on writing. The student consciously identifies general ideas such as lies hidden in cuteness through game design, and they further describe the game plot with a trickster cat who invites a girl to play with him. Materials are listed as digital illustration and print media, but the student could be more clear by including specific programs to help the viewer assess the applications. They do help explain the color choices in the process notes by stating the light and dark colors represent the duality of the lies, and soft pink colors symbolize cuteness. All right, and here is your second example. Okay, you can see this is a very different style, and we're going to see some different materials and processes appearing here. So ideas. Social standards are the effects of social media. This is done through digital media. Again, I would push you to tell me more about that. And the process is digital collage. If you were saying digital collage, I would also want to know things like, where are you getting the images? So are the images scanned? Are they stock photos? Are they photos you took? Or like all of those things would be some questions I will be pushing you with. Work 2, representing human emotion through texture. Materials, digital media using imagery from vintage magazines and newspapers. So that is a much better example where they went into a little bit more detail. Where are these coming from? Process, digital collage. So this grouping of selected works scored a 5, which again, that's the highest you can score. 2D design skills, this was feedback on their use of the elements and principles of design in their 5 selected works. There is visual evidence of advanced 2D skills in this collection of surrealistic digital collages. In all of the work, the student clearly demonstrates a highly developed skill in exploring the 2D principles of figure-ground relationships, rhythm, contrast, hierarchy, opacity, transparency, emphasis, and balance. Work 4 exhibits thoughtful consideration of the use of texture on a 2D surface as the student alternates between cut and torn edges in fragmenting the imagery. The composition is balanced with text and imagery effectively integrated. Color is used selectively but thoughtfully as the pink background contrasts with the greens in the plant imagery, obscuring half of the woman's face. The visual evidence throughout all 5 pieces shows a sophisticated level of selecting, integrating, and altering magazine fragments, text, painterly calligraphy, complemented with a rich understanding of color harmonies. A reminder again for selected works that you are physically sending these in. So for these, because they are digital pieces, if you were working digitally, you would need to be printing them out. When you print them, that would be your choice of what the size is. As the person who made them, you would be choosing the size. But I do want you just to be prepared for that, thinking about that if you're working digitally. So if you're taking photos or doing anything digitally, 5 of the things will have to be printed. I can help you with that if you don't have a great printer. I, for example, pretty much always send my things to Staples because their printer is just a much higher quality than mine is. Ideas representing human emotion through texture we're seeing in work 3. The materials are digital media using imagery from vintage magazines and newspapers. Process, again, is digital collage. Work 4, societal standards and the effects of social media, and the materials and processes continue to be the same. And here is work 5. Ideas, societal standards and the effects of social media, and processes and materials are the same. So here was feedback on their materials, processes, and ideas, as well as their writing. So visual relationships among materials, processes, and ideas are not only evident, but are fully integrated with one another. Across all of these 5 works, the student is exploring emotion through texture and also noted a specific interest in representing the effect of media on teenagers. To borrow the language of print media, magazine typefaces and photos reflects a thoughtful consideration of the ways that materials can effectively relate to ideas. In building these digital collages, the student has employed processes of layering and repetition that deepen the exploration of the ideas at hand. In each work, there are motifs that are repeated in subtle ways that lead the viewer's eye across the page. The repetition of calligraphic loops in work 2, the echoing of repeating line of a barcode with lines of text in work 4, and the black brush marks in work 1. The multiple layering of vast amounts of imagery could easily overwhelm, but the student clearly shows a sophisticated understanding of hierarchy within collage. Writing. Written evidence identifies materials such as vintage magazines, processes digital collage techniques, and ideas representing emotions and the effects of a media through the use of texture and layering. So they did not give them much feedback on their writing. Okay, so as I said, if there were things that we just looked at, materials, processes that were interesting to you or that you have questions about, head over to Google Classroom and post them.